Welcome to Growth Architects, a podcast for tech entrepreneurs, product innovators, and marketing strategists. Whether you're searching for product market fit, exploring new growth channels, or trying to avoid common startup pitfall, this is where you'll find proven strategies to fuel your success. And now, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Growth Architect. My guest today is Ian Ormerod, and with him, we're going to discuss every aspect of marketing and building a brand in the sustainability space. So don't miss this episode if you want to know what works and what doesn't when it comes to marketing to companies that care about sustainability. Ian, I'm very happy to have you here.
Thanks very much, Federico. Delighted to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, welcome to the show. As said, today you are the sustainability guy, right? And with you today, we're going to talk about everything around that theme. Yeah. But before we start, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your personal journey?
Yeah, sure. So I suppose the short version, historically, I've spent about 28 years in the financial services sector, primarily in banking. I've had the fortunate position to work with some of the best teams across the world, primarily building or buying digital businesses and expanding those globally. So my skill set has historically been very focused in the banking sector. Just before COVID hit in 2020, I had decided to take 12 months off, largely because I was doing a lot of travel with a role that I had with a bank in Spain. I was missing the family, bluntly. So I decided to spend 12 months off before the kids sort of leave home and that sort of stuff, and spend time with them. And during that period, initially, I had every expectation I would be going back into the world of banking, but spending time with them, bluntly, started making me feel increasingly guilty about what we're leaving behind for the next generations. And that got me into thinking about what I could do about it. And that led to the birth of Switch2Zero.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, and what is it? When was the moment when you said, "Well, it's really now the time to make a switch"? Was there a tipping point that made you realize that you not only needed to switch career, but you also needed to do something where you decided, say, your own future?
Yeah, so I suppose there wasn't sort of a lightning bolt moment particularly. If I'm honest, I'm a bit more clinical and a bit more calculated than that.
Okay.
When I was developing products and propositions and innovating for banks, I would go through a relatively set innovation process in terms of writing some hypotheses, going out to the market to understand as much data as I could about where I was targeting and why I was targeting to really understand the problem and the target audiences. And as I was thinking about that from a climate perspective, you suddenly get blown out the water anyway, because if you think about it, it is a problem that every single human being in the planet has. It is a challenge that every single business on the planet has. And it is a challenge that virtually every single government in the world has signed up to try to solve. We haven't even done that for child poverty, but globally, we've done it to really to focus on climate. And yet, despite that sort of, I suppose, alignment and that reach, so little is happening at pace, and it's so difficult to get things done in a pragmatic and sensible way, that for me, there was a very tangible problem to go after. And really, when I then thought about how I would go about solving the problem, given that I come from a digital background, I wanted to create a solution that had significant scalability and could reach as many people as possible. And so really, it was marrying my skill sets with a breakdown of the needs and the problems and the use cases that I needed to go after if I was going to really turn the dial and make a difference in this space.
Yeah. And well, I think what's interesting about this story, right, is that, as you said, it's a huge problem that we haven't solved yet, but that's not something that discouraged you. You had, let's say, the technical skills to know how to build something, because that's already what you were doing before. So the whole innovation path, plus the kind of inner call to kind of try to solve this problem. So what I would be curious to know is, like, what is it exactly that you decided to do first, in terms of, like, what was the first problem that you wanted to tackle? And did you already have previous knowledge about it, for example, from your previous career? Or was it something that you started researching after you decided that you wanted to start with it?
So I had been involved in it, increasingly involved in it,
Okay.
because it has always been an area I've been very interested in. And the latter sort of 5 to 10 years in my banking career, I was involved in crafting ESG strategies and also developing business models that would help facilitate the provision of things like solar panels and various other things. I was involved, I suppose, in the fringes of the space. But actually, when I decided I was really considering making a go of it, I also went back to school. So I did a couple of courses with Cambridge University, their sustainability leadership courses, really to give me a little bit more depth to my current view, as well as a great network of experts and in various different areas that I could lean into and learn more from. So I suppose from an expertise point of view, I had an armchair grounding and a degree of interest. And then I supplemented that with, I suppose, a more academic approach to fill in the gaps and to build the network I need to lean into even more expertise where I need it.
Got it, which kind of allowed you to connect the dots, so to say.
Yeah, it did. But equally, I suppose what I then married that to, so the subject matter, or in terms of the size of the challenge and what you need to do as a business, when actually it isn't rocket science. All you really need to do is understand what your footprint is and the components of it, create a plan of action to reduce that footprint over time, and monitor and track your execution of that plan at a very high level. The devil is obviously in the detail, and there is a fair degree of complexity in there, but at a high level, it's relatively straightforward. And I suppose from my experience working in very large, big corporate companies and also building small fintech companies, I was very cited on the need to be very pragmatic and action orientated. So if I look at a lot of activity in this space historically, when companies have had an ambition to understand their carbon footprint, they've kind of got locked into this rabbit hole of an accuracy of number. So they therefore see the complexity of all the different categories under the GHG protocol that they need to calculate and the different scopes. And they kind of go down this rabbit hole of trying to get the right number, when actually the reality is there's no such thing as a right number. It's all going to be an estimate. Clearly, there's a different level of granularity and accuracy of those estimates. But actually, you don't need to know the right number to start taking some really meaningful, powerful action. A lot of what you do to reduce your carbon footprint to a degree is common sense. And so you could, particularly if you're a business owner, but if you're, if you're aware of how that business operates, if it's a larger business, you can quite quickly zone in on areas that are likely to be consuming a lot of energy, which in turn drives a footprint. And I suppose what I've looked to try and do, and the problem I've gone after, is to marry a need for accuracy over time in terms of understanding of a footprint with the pragmatic approach of picking clear, tangible actions that can be executed to make a difference. And it's with that you create momentum, you create good news stories, you can create positive change that in itself drives an acceleration and hunger to continue and go deeper.
Got it. Yeah. And so let's take a step back now, right? Because then we make sure that everyone can follow the story. So would you like to tell us a little bit more, what is it that your company does now? And how did you come to the problem solution fit that you guys have nowadays?
Yeah. So we have a digital platform that's available pretty much globally. It is primarily targeted, we do B2B as well as B2C, but we effectively target primarily the larger end of SME, small corp type businesses. And the platform enables them to calculate and understand their footprint, set actions and goals to reduce that, effectively a net zero plan over time, track that over time, as well as instigate certain what we call sustainability actions. So some of those could be, as well as actions to change your footprint, like solar panels and heat pumps and all that sort of stuff, that you can also do things to offset your residual footprint. The primary one being the purchase of voluntary carbon offsets and things. And we have a solution that does that for businesses. We also have partnerships across the globe with leading players that collect plastic waste. So we enable our clients to fund the collection of plastic waste or to fund the planting of trees globally. And we create products that enable them to embed that in their own experiences. So, for example, we have an API that e-commerce players use to plant trees with each purchase. It doesn't suddenly make them a green or carbon neutral business, and we certainly don't attach that tree planting to their carbon footprint in any way. But planting trees is a good thing to do. It's an easy thing to do, and it's something that a business can do as a positive environmental activity while they get up to speed with everything else that they're doing. And so it's kind of an on-ramp, if you see what I mean, that we can use to pull businesses into us, to then educate them and encourage them over time to go deeper and deeper into their challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, sounds great. It's actually very interesting. So the product, as you described it to me, actually covers all the aspect that you mentioned before, right? From creating the strategy to implementing it.
Yeah, so we have both an offline and an online sort of capability. While in a perfect world, and we will evolve in that direction, it will be almost completely automated and a almost digital only product. What we do know, because of the complexity, is a lot of organizations want to talk to humans. We need, and we're learning ourselves about exactly what businesses need and the intricacies in calculating footprints and things. So we effectively marry a consulting solution that we provide with a digital platform that can then be used to track and monitor progress and things like that. What you'll see happening is more and more of that consulting brain that is currently humans will be flowing into the platform and enable it to provide bespoke recommendations based on the data that's in there for clients.
And well, I need to ask you this question, but do you see any role also for AI to kind of bridge the gap between the input of data and a customized plan?
Yeah, absolutely. We're already in the background playing around with that. Both machine learning and Gen AI for data interrogation and visualization and report writing and that sort of stuff. And so that will be a fundamental bedrock part of what our proposition is. But at the moment, we're learning so much that we are planning to continue, I suppose, the human element for at least the next 6 to 12 months as we allow then ML and the Gen AI solutions to take over the more high frequency, high volume and more simple areas. And they will start to swim upstream in complexity as we become more and more confident in their performance as to where they've been released, if that makes sense.
So I would like to zoom in a bit into like go-market plan and also the strategies for traction. So try to put myself here in the shoes of, let's say, another founder of a tech solution that is also equally interested in having an impact on the sustainability of the planet and working with companies that do care about that, right? How did you start to distribute your product, and what was kind of the key that enabled you guys to be as successful as you are today?
So I suppose I'd start by saying we made so many mistakes on this journey. I would be looking through incredibly rose-tinted glasses if I thought we'd got loads right early doors. To a degree, we had a sort of build it and they will come mentality, and we thought we'd just have to tell a few people or blast out a few adverts and gates would be flooded with inquiries. The reality is, it doesn't really matter how good your product is. If you can't get your message out, and you can't make it very, very easy for people to both understand that and onboard. And the onboard and that equation of ease. So you've got awareness and you've got ease. So awareness is obviously how and where they hear about you. And then you have ease, which is what is the effort reward equation for me to engaging you? And if that isn't right, they're not, it becomes too complicated. It goes on the tomorrow pile, whatever it might be. So initially when we launched, we did a really big email campaign. So my view was, right, let's just get the message out there. Everyone's passionate about this stuff. We're going to get loads of interest. And sure enough, we sent out 25,000 emails in the first month or something and got pretty much diddly squat back. We got a few tens of inquiries, but nothing major. We looked at that, broke it down in terms of the sales funnel, became much clearer about who we were targeting and why we were targeting people. We invested more time going after specific segments like fast fashion, children's clothes providers, in the e-commerce space particularly, and we talk to them not only about sustainability, which is what we're trying to get them to do, but we talk much more about how we can help them market the great activity that they're doing to drive their top line and better engage their customers. So really what we started doing is not really talking about product, but talking about a way that they could drive their customer engagement and their sales while at the same time doing something good for the environment. And so, for example, if you look at our e-commerce plugin, which is a very simple solution of planting one or a number of trees per purchase, we provide a lot of marketing collateral, whether that's a live ticker tape type widget that they can place on their site so that the number of trees is constantly ratcheting up. We provide a lot of information and ready-made social posts that they can push out to their audiences about what they're doing and why they're doing it. And we do that for two reasons. One is, well, we do it for three reasons. One is it's great for their business, which is the primary reason. The second reason is we protect their brand and ours by stopping them greenwashing. Bluntly, it's easy to get carried away and make false claims about what you're doing and the benefits of it and everything else. So if we're providing that literature and we're providing that marketing collateral, we know it's accurate, we know it's saying the right thing, and it's not exaggerating benefits or other things. In fact, they're typically really quite conservative. And then
let me stop you for a second here, Ian. I think you said a lot of interesting things on which I would like to zoom in if you allow me. So the very first thing you said, right, is that you understood better who you're kind of selling to. Well, one of the things I learned selling to corporates, right, is that usually you never really sell to a corporate, but people within it. So curious to know, who's your persona within the companies that you guys approach?
So we have two primary personas that we focus on. One is effectively the commercial persona, and that is someone that is driven to drive sales and or engagement with their audience. And we break that down into some sub-personas because that varies by industry type sometimes, and it certainly varies by size of business. But there's effectively the help me sell more to my business persona, and there's some sub-personas underneath that. And then the other area is much more brand and compliance orientated, which is either I'm worried about my brand reputation in the context of sustainability, or I want to improve my brand and my reputation in that space, or I have a regulatory requirement or obligation, or I'm being asked to provide that sort of information to my clients, if I'm a B2B company, for example, and I need support and help and confidence in that space. So those are the two lead personas that we are involved in, and each of those have some sub-personas that are more targeted dependent on either the market sector or the size of the business we're engaging with. We then have a couple of other personas. So a founder persona, which is really the moral obligation persona. So it's, I'm building a business, I'm trying to do something special, I'm doing this because I believe it's the right thing to do, make it work for me. Okay. So I can't afford to lose a fortune on it, I can't afford to spend loads of money, but help me do the right thing type persona. Those I suppose are the three with some sub personas underneath.
Got it. Yeah, interesting. And it sounds like before people get to kind of discover or use your platform, actually there is a lot of thought leadership, so to say, and really sharing of information on the things that you mentioned before. So how being greener helps you be more profitable as well. How do you try to then create and distribute the right content for all of these personas? Like what channels did you see work? What kind of information are they interested in?
So we're still learning every single day in this space. I'll tell you what hasn't worked first, because that's the easiest stuff. So we don't go anywhere near Facebook at all. We don't do anything on Google Ads. We don't do any paid advertising in a more traditional way anymore. We did spend a fair bit across those channels, but our return on investment was very limited. And there's so many bots out there now clicking on links and doing various other things. You're not even, I wasn't even convinced, if I'm honest, that 50% of the clicks we were getting were real. So for me, I then stepped back and sort of thought, right, what is a better way to engage? And I reverted to human to learn first. So we employed a couple of outbound cold callers who picked up phones to clients or potential clients, but just started to talk to them about what their needs might be, what they were looking for, what their solutions are. Off that, we then developed marketing collateral, targeting those needs as we sort of group them all together from those learning. And we started to then proactively go and talk about that through both email campaigns, some advertising on LinkedIn, and writing articles and pushing those out to our audience and followers as they've grown.
Okay, got it. Interesting. So to recap and summarize what you did, you first of all asked your target audience what is it that they were interested in, kind of. Then you have created pieces that could address these topics, like, for example, articles, and then distributing them with LinkedIn ads or direct.
Yeah, absolutely. What we'll also be launching soon is webinars.
Okay.
So I do believe that's a very, very big opportunity for us to deliver some meaningful content in a very absorbable format. And we'll be running probably a monthly webinar addressing really the pragmatic end of the carbon footprint calculation and execution, really to try and help businesses engage with the issue, understand how they can take their first baby steps in the right direction, as efficiently, as quickly as possible.
And when it comes to the content, what have you seen works well in terms of engagement from your audience? What is there something that there is not enough available about?
For me, it's pragmatism. It's almost the tell me what to do. So typically, a lot of the stuff that we write is we give a high level overview of what the challenge or the issue is. So we might be talking about something specific, or it might be a big subject. It might be like tackling your carbon footprint. We've done a number of papers and articles on that space, but we give a very high level overview at the top. We then jump to super pragmatic, and basically it says, do these 5 things next. And then under that, there's a lot more depth, and sort of say, but if you want all the background reading and you really want to understand the depth behind it, read the next 20 pages. So, or click on this link and visit the next, the more in-depth report. So really what I'm trying to address all the time is it's difficult to know if the audience wants depth, or if they trust you, really, that all they want to know is, what do you think we should do? Then they can spend time getting on with it. So our articles are very much driven in that way. It's a high level overview of a problem and solution. It's to make progress in that direction, do these 2 or 3, 4, 5 things. But if you want more detail, click here. That's kind of the stuff that we're learning is most popular with the people we engage with.
Well, I think that's in general a very good piece of advice for everyone doing content marketing in B2B. Indeed, I think we're all a bit saturated by either opinions on this is going to be next or this is going to happen, especially when there's little context to it. So I think that this kind of things, which are either very practical, like do this next, but also on a very granular level, or for example, more data and use cases is indeed what everyone is more interested into, rather than generic.
In fact, you've touched on another area that we certainly has helped us, which is testimonials and use cases, as in real life use cases, to explain what it is you do and how it's worked and how it's been successful. I think that really helps a lot of people absorb what can sometimes be quite complex information much more quickly. So yeah, we've certainly done that. And we will continue to do more of that. The other thing I think I would say, which we haven't touched on yet, that helps us quite significantly, is I mentioned that we produce a lot of the marketing collateral and comms material that our clients use. All of that is co-branded. So all of my customers, all of our members on our platform are talking to all their members about the great work they're doing with us. And so we get a fair bit of traffic to our site from those engagements. If you have, so we have clients, they have live widgets on their site with ticker tapes, and it says powered by Switch2Zero. If you click on the widget, it takes them to our platform. So those sorts of viral loops and sort of circular sort of loops that you can create mean that you're not paying for that traffic.
Yeah, very smart. That's a bit the send with iPhone, right? Thing that you guys are doing.
Yeah, it is. I think the other thing that we do, because you can tie in solving a problem with generating more of that traffic. An example being for our e-commerce plugin, which I know I mentioned a bit today, but we pull the data of every single transaction that e-commerce player makes, obviously with their permission. We write an email, a confirmation email to every single one of their customers, as well as create a personalized landing page should their customer choose to go on it, that talks more about the impact that that merchant has made, as well as confirm that a tree has been ordered by that merchant as a result of what they've done. Now, Initially, we did it primarily because we wanted to generate end-to-end transparency for our clients, because they were concerned about, anyone can say they planted trees, but how do you know they're actually being planted and where are they being planted and all that sort of stuff. So we came up with this solution primarily for that purpose. But actually what it also means is we're sending out 40,000 plus emails a month to e-commerce customers who bought something from an e-commerce site to tell them we planted a tree. And obviously there's a link back to our site so that they can have a look at the different projects and programs that they've helped fund, or the brand that they've just purchased something from as help fund. And obviously if they're browsing on that site, they can become a member themselves and take out products and solutions themselves. So that helps too.
Cool. Yeah, very, very smart. There's one more question that I would like to ask you on this specific aspect of like marketing and branding, right? Because you guys are a B2B company serving then other companies and educating them on the importance of branding. How important do you think is branding for yourself and the sustainability message within the message of your brand, even though you're in the B2B market?
I think it's exceptionally important. I mean, really what's important is trust.
Okay.
So we need to be synonymous with accuracy and doing the right thing and transparency. And so we're very, very focused on anything we put out, on the messaging on our website, on any of our articles, to ensure that they are fact-checked to death, that they are very conservative in any estimates that are being created, that they are backed by clear empirical evidence. And we maintain a public ledger, for example. So every single transaction that Switch2Zero makes on behalf of its clients is visible on our platform, as well as evidence of the payment, the retirement certificates, and all the other stuff. So for us, our brand has to be about trust, so that the brands we work with feel confident that they can work with us, but more importantly, their customers see our brand alongside ours. And ultimately, because obviously we're still a small business, but ultimately will think, okay, yeah, they're working with Switch2Zero. I've seen them elsewhere doing all this great stuff. That's a really good thing.
Got it. I think it's very interesting, this point of view, right? Because I really agree with the fact that even in B2B, branding is getting more just from a look and feel point of view, but also there is really a deeper alignment with mission and the vision of your client. So being able that you show that you can marry to that and support it, actually, really, I think it's extremely important. So yeah, I think it's an interesting point of view of yours.
I also think it's more important from a B2B perspective in the sustainability space.
Yeah.
Because a lot of businesses want to have a third party as a verification that they're doing the right thing. And you know, in a similar way, you might use auditors or accountants and other things around important financial aspects. The brand risk of getting this wrong is so significant that working with a company that can verify what you're doing is important. And so if you can make those solutions very embedded in everything that you do, so for example, for every single transaction we do, we create personalized QR codes that lead to a personalized confirmation page and all the data to show that that transaction happened. So if one of our clients, and they can display them on badges, they can display them on certificates, they can stick them on the website, but with a scan and or a click, you can see confirmation and verification of what's happened. Those sorts of things is where you're leveraging technology to create that complete transparency, and that in turn builds trust.
Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing. I have one final question, which actually brings us back a bit on a higher level of the conversation, so to say, because you mentioned before that in sustainability, there's a lot happening still, so little has changed. When you take a more say, higher level point of view on the direction in which we're going, why do you think that so little is moving, so to say?
I think it's not painful enough. So you see the biggest change in movement where there's regulatory involvement currently, so it's more stick than carrot. I think with the macroeconomic climate and the concerns and challenges so many businesses have, this understandably gets pushed a little further down the list. And equally, we've it quite complicated. So when I say we, I suppose I mean the sector themselves, but the GHG protocol with its 3 scopes and multiple subcategories and everything else, if you lift the lid up and have a look as a business because you're interested in it, you suddenly think, okay, this is going to take me hours and hours and hours and hours just to get my head around it, or I've got to pay someone, an expensive consultant to help. And so, unless you're telling me I have to do this, or my customers are telling me I have to do this, I'm going to do it, but later. And I think that tipping point isn't there yet, if I'm honest, as an industry, unless you're a very big business and therefore regulatory obligated to do it. Unless you can create that kind of lift the lid up moment to be a lot easier than it should be, which is what we're trying to do. But my belief, if I'm honest, in the sustainability space is it's going to be a tough couple of years, at least. I think we're 2027 to 2028 as we get close to a lot of public obligations and commitments that governments have made globally for 2030 in the Paris Agreement. It's only when we get very close to those sorts of deadlines that I think you're going to see a much, much sharper focus in a lot of this area.
Oh, cool. Interesting. I want to thank you for sharing so much today with us. What's the best way in which people can hear more about what you guys are doing and stay in contact?
Well, check us out on Switch2Zero.com. Very easy website to get to. There's shed loads of information in there. You can join free as a member and explore all our articles and market intelligence and all that sort of stuff by just wandering around. You can calculate your own footprint, all that sort of stuff on the platform for free as a high-level industry benchmark and that sort of stuff. Equally, if you want to connect with me, it's Ian at Switch2Zero.com. Very happy to take traffic by email and chat and riff with anybody that wants to talk to sustainability.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Well, yeah, thanks again for your time.
A pleasure.
I'm very happy that you joined.
Great to speak to you. Take care. Cheers, Federico. Bye.